All right, let's dive into personal user manuals. I'm going to show you a couple of examples and you'll start to see there is no right, there is no wrong. They're all very different. When you get the email from Shannon later today, you'll see some additional examples. So again, you can dive in and just start to look at what are some that are out there. But again, there's no right and no wrong. Now, if you're doing this with your team, I highly recommend, especially if you have a new team member coming in, highly recommend giving them a template. So don't have a free-for-all, but give them something to react to. And in the resources, you'll see a couple of examples. So here is one from someone in my network. And after I read her entire, and this will be included because hers is quite long, I only gave you a snapshot of it. Her and I have never met in person. Obviously, she lives in another country, but her and I are on connecting in Zoom quite a bit. And after I read her personal user manual, because she goes on to talk about some of her interests and likes, I was like, I think if we lived in the same town, you and I would be the best of friends. She likes to sew, she likes modern English, all kinds of things. And I'm like, right here, totally in on that. So she talks a little bit about, where because she does a lot of international work. So she talks a little bit about her languages as well as where she's based. And then she goes right into communication preferences. And her and I were talking about this. And for her, that's probably the biggest drawback or the biggest stumbling block a lot of people have working with her. They want to know, or they automatically default to a Slack versus an email. She likes email. I'm more of an I am kind of a person. So for her, it's easier to organize. She is all about having agendas like me, needing to know what a meeting is for. So the things that tripped people up the most when they are working with her, those are the things she rose to the top. So that's why she chose those. And then she puts personal interest later. Another example, this is something a little bit different. Somebody just put a little bit of about me. Here's a little bit, here's who I am. And then what do I expect? I like they kind of gave it from an aspect of here's what I expect of myself and here's what I expect of others. This one is used with his team a lot. He shares it with his team. He wrote a little bit about it. But I do like how, as I'm reading this, it kind of makes me get to know him a little bit more just because of the approach that he took. Instead of, here are 5 facts, here's how I like to communicate. So you can see these two are extremely different. Now I'll show you another one that's even more different. So this one starts with values and culture. One thing I see in a lot of team agreements, and it's in one of the templates you'll get, they talk about gold stars. Here's how to get a gold star from me. So you can see under collaboration, they have gold stars. I like people who are tactical, can explain something super complex, consistently keeps me in the loop on things that are relevant to me. So this one started with values, then moved into collaboration. The one thing I'd like to highlight here is the quirk at the end. So I kind of like that she put quirks in there. And this is a hot button for me. If I were to read this, I would actually sit down and have a conversation with her. Because as you'll see on my personal user manual, I cannot stand when somebody is late to a meeting. And here she says, I run late to meetings a lot. It's not personal, more to do with meetings running over my poor time management skill. But to me, that's an issue of respect. And it is a hot button. And I would actually sit down and have a conversation with her and say, let's have a conversation about this because I see it. I know you say it's not personal, but how can I help you? Maybe we can do some meetings that are shorter and I can help you think through that because it's a sign of respect to me. So having something like this really can help if you get out in front of it and you can see it. And then you can say, okay, here's something. I saw that. I was glancing at it. I'm like, woo, red flag, red flag. Nope, not. I cannot. It really is. It grates on me and I'm going to stop talking about it because it is that irritating to me. So you can see how they can be a way for you to get in front of something, have a conversation starter. I know she said it isn't personal, but it would be a conversation for the two of us. How are we going to work through this? Because I'm always on time. I expect people to respect my time and be on time. And you're saying you're always late. So let's talk about it. Now I'll show you my personal user manual so you can see something that is even a little bit different. All right, so my personal user manual, one of the things that I added that I think everybody should start adding is either an audio file or a phonetic on how to say your name. So one of the things I have in there is how to say Cola Donato, because it is a mouthful. It's something that is not quite easy to say. I talk a little bit about, here's who I am. This is where you see the question. I started my career the year that Escapade by Janet Jackson and Vogue by Madonna came out. I roll into here's some of my previous lives. This gives people some context. And then I added something I like because mine is a little bit long. So as you're scrolling through it, it's like, whoa, that's a little bit. So I did a little too long, don't read. And I did basically this or that lightning round. And as you can see on here, there's some fun little things in here. And then there's some things that are important to me. So I prefer instant messaging over email. Just don't send me an email. Send me an IM, especially if it's urgent. I like to work in bursts. I can't power through. My mind just doesn't work that way. If you want me to ideate on something, I prefer to do it asynchronously and brainstorm that way, and maybe on a Miro board or a shared document versus, hey, let's all get together. I would rather work early than late. Mountains over beach. Here's an important one. Disco over pop. I mean, who doesn't love good disco? Movies at home versus friends with a party, with friends versus going to a party. So you can see mine also shows that's just my personality. I should have worked tiaras in there somewhere. I have a love for tiaras. It's a long story. But then the other things that are really important to me are things like communications. So meeting musts. If I don't have knowledge of what the meeting is about, I don't accept it. I will send it back and say, please tell me what this is. What are you hoping to accomplish? I never, ever accept a meeting unless I know what it's about. Comms, a little bit more. Video emails. I love a video email. It helps people to start to understand a little bit why I like them because they give more context. I added, I do my best work when. So for me, I do my best work when I'm given time to think and respond. So if you send me pre-work, because we're going to discuss it in a meeting, I can be prepared. I can think on my feet, but I do much better when you give me time to prepare. I like to have breathing space. I like to vary my working environments. Don't ask me to stay in the same place all the time. And then I add a little fun facts and miscellany. So this is where if you do things like Strengths Finder or DISC or any other kind of assessments in your workplace, that might be a good place to put them. And then I put some personal things. I got into paint by numbers when I was in during COVID. So I've done a couple paint by number things, which you see behind me. My cat Amber, who is not here because she's locked out of the room and she's very mad about that. You usually see her on video calls. So you can start to see all of the examples that I shared with you, none of them are exactly the same. And this is where, to Lillian's point, the same thing happens with team agreements, is this can be a source of frustration because people are like, well, wait a minute, how am I supposed to, and then they just get tripped up and then they never, ever move forward.